Ladies and gentlemen, let me open a series of docketed public hearings between the City Council, City of Pearland, and the Planning and Zoning Commission of the City of Pearland. And before we get started, I'd like to ask staff to give us some guidance on the procedures that we follow and some of the rules that we have to use during this process. And we'll make it a lot easier to understand the series.
All right. Good evening, council members and commissioners. The order of agenda tonight, that you have two CUPs and the UDC amendment on table. The zone change request for 324 Riley Road was pulled due to notification. They didn't get their sign up in time. So CUP 16-00015 is for 1524 East Broadway Street. CUP 17-00001 is for 7109 West Broadway Street. And then UDC Amendment T-24 are all on for tonight. Each item has a public hearing conducted as follows. There will be a call to order, then staff report, then the applicant has an opportunity to present. Public comments either in support or opposition to are followed. Please come forward to the microphone. Please state your name and address for the record. Please be brief to the point within a 3-minute time frame, and then complete a speaker's card and give it to the recording secretary to my left. Then council, commission, and staff will have their discussion over the item, and then there will be an adjournment. After the joint public hearing, Planning and Zoning Commission will hold their regular meeting tonight after the public hearing, later on this evening to vote on their recommendation. Speaking at the P&Z meeting is at the P&Z's discretion, and there will be a first and second consideration. The date that I have here is incorrect. I just found out about it this afternoon, that there will not be a March 6th meeting, but instead it will be a March 20th and March 27th first and second consideration.
That completes your report?
Yes, sir.
Good. Let me make a couple of comments, and that is one of them. With this particular council and planning commission public hearing process, there will be no decision making at this process. It will be made later in the procedures that we followed as it moves on through the system. And the other is that if you have questions to ask, or anybody in the audience have questions to ask, go ahead and ask the question, but I can't dialogue with you. But either the planning commissioner or one of the council members will present that question in your behalf after we get down through item 5 on our agenda. So with that in place, I will open each one with a gavel, and I will close each public hearing with a gavel. With that in place, let me open the docket public hearing for CUP 16-00015 and ask the chairman of the Planning Commission to read into the record the purpose of the hearing tonight.
Thank you, Mayor. This is a request of Ted Meyer, applicant on behalf of Musa Adi, owner, for approval of a conditional use permit, CUP, to allow for an auto wash self-service in the general commercial GC zoning district on approximately 1.0672 acres of land. General location is 1524 East Broadway.
That information in the record. Let's move down, and we use this. I have the same agenda that you have. If you don't have one, there are some on in the lobby underneath the stairwell, the reception table out there. That information in the record. Let's move down to item 3 on our collective agenda: application, information, and case summary. Item 3A is staff report.
Yes, sir. Again, this is the CUP for the conditional use permit for the auto wash within the general commercial at 1524 East Broadway Street. This is an aerial map showing the lot. The structure in question is along that eastern property line. This is the zoning map showing general commercial for basically everything surrounding it, except for that property across to the north, which is general business. This is the future land use plan map showing retail, offices, and services all the way throughout. This is a view to the northeast. This is a view to the northwest. This is a view to the southeast. And this is a view to the southwest. And then this is the proposed auto wash, which was previously an oil change facility. And this is the site plan, and you can see that little structure is there on the bottom south property line. Summary of the request. This request is for a CUP to allow an auto wash self-service within the general commercial district. The property has a gas station with a convenience store, gas pumps, and the abandoned car wash structure. The applicant is proposing to redevelop the existing auto wash structure. The applicant is currently installing landscaping to screen the auto wash from Broadway Street. Staff has received one comment sheet in opposition and no phone calls regarding the proposed request. Staff recommends approval of the CUP for an auto wash self-service facility on the approximate 1.0672 acre site for the following reasons. The proposed CUP is compatible with the established non-residential uses in the area. The adjacent properties are commercial in nature, and the proposed use complements the other businesses. The application is for an existing building that does not require any additional upgrades or alterations. Any alterations are negligible and will not have impacts on the site or the surrounding uses. And the applicant has already taken steps to install enhanced landscaping to screen the auto wash from Broadway Street. This completes staff's report.
Thank you. Let's move to 3B, which will let the applicant make a presentation. And when you come up, be sure, and since this is a legal process that we're going through, be sure to give us your name and address and fill out one of these forms. Well, they're great forms, great colored. Yeah, one of these. Make sure you fill out one of those either before you come up or before you leave. So, thank you very much. Please come up. That's right.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, council members, commissioners. Mr. Griggs did a wonderful job at presenting what we are planning to do. We are planning on repurposing the existing car wash bay, enhancing it, making it look much, much better than it was before.
Would you please introduce yourself for the record?
I'm sorry. Ted Mayer. I'm with Mark 7 Car Wash.
Your name and address and such. Yeah.
My company address is 5981 Tennyson Street, Arvada, Colorado 8003. Though I am a Texan. Sorry about that. I would like to say, as a side note, that the Planning Commission and everyone in the city of Pearland has been very helpful with us and stepping us through the process, and we're very grateful. The whole idea of putting a car wash in this building is the building was originally designed for that, and it is certainly an enhancement to the community. It's an enhancement to the building structure, and with the proposed landscaping, we've chosen the Asian jasmine as the ground cover, and we are also planning on using the Home Depot hedgerow to continue, if that is acceptable to this committee. to guard the site or to keep the site from being seen from the road. Trimmed at the same height. And the whole idea is to enhance the property to make it more appealing to the public. There have already been enhancements made on the C-store and the canopy with enhanced lighting, and this is the next natural progression of such enhancements. And with that, shall I entertain questions or comments?
We can't dialogue with you at this process.
Oh,
Thank you.
very good. Thank you very much for your
We
time.
may call on you for answers later, but
Very good. Thanks so much.
thank you. Appreciate that very much. That information in the record. Let's move down to item C, which is staff wrap-up. Is there any staff wrap-up comments at this point? Okay, moving to item 4 on our collective agendas. For persons wishing to speak for or against this proposed request. If you care to do so, be sure you fill out one of these forms. Please come to the podium, give us your name and address, and make your presentation. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to enter into the record a comment, statement, or testimony regarding this proposed development? Is there anyone in the audience who would like to enter into the record a comment, statement, or testimony regarding this proposed zoning request? For the third and final time, for the purpose of the record, before I move forward in the agenda, is there anyone in the audience who would like to enter into the record a comment, statement, or testimony regarding this proposed CUP request? Hearing none, then let's move down to item number 5 on our collective agendas, which is Council, Planning Commission, and the staff have an opportunity to share their thoughts on this. Let me start with Councilmember Carbone.
No comment, Mayor.
Councilmember Reed.
Thank you, Mayor. No comment.
Okay. Councilmember Moore.
I only say I think it's ironic that this is now becoming a car wash since the oil change place was part of discussions on changing UDC, so I just think that's ironic.
Councilmember Ordno. Councilmember Hill. And Councilmember Perez.
I'd just say that I'm supportive of the use, so no comments.
Okay. Let me turn this over to the Chairman of the Planning Commission for input from the commissioners.
No comments, Mayor. Thank you.
No comment? Does staff have any wrap-up comments at this point? Hearing none, I'll move down to item 6 on our agenda, which will let me adjourn this docket public hearing for CUP 16-00015. And in a like manner, open a standalone docket public hearing for a CUP application 17-00001 as the chairman of the Planning Commission to read into the record the purpose of this hearing.
Thank you, Mayor. This is a request of Hiran C. Patel, applicant on behalf of 2ML Real Estate Interest Incorporated, owner, for approval of a conditional use permit CUP to allow for a liquor package store in the general business GB zoning district on approximately 1.5707 acres of land. The general location is 7109 West Broadway Street.
Okay. That information in the record. Let's move to item 3 on our collective agendas. Application information case summary, 3A staff report.
As mentioned, this is CUP 17-00001, CUP for a liquor package store within the general business zoning district for 7109 West Broadway Street. This is an aerial map showing the lot and where the suite is located in. This is the zoning map showing general business for the lot. The future land use plan showing business commercial. This is a picture looking into the lot, going north. This is a view looking east. This is a view looking south across Broadway, and then a view looking west. And then the arrow pointing on the site plan shows the specific suite that they are looking to occupy for the liquor store. This request, again, is for CUP to allow the liquor package store use within the general business zoning district. The property is currently developed as a shopping center, and the proposed use will be located in an existing 1,500 square foot suite within the center. On October 24th, 2016, the City Council approved the liquor package stores as a new land use category, which is CUP is required in the general business, BP 288 general commercial, and M1 zoning districts. Staff has received one comment sheet in favor and no phone calls regarding the proposed request. And this new land use category did earn a Chronicle shout out in the newspaper, so no need to be coy about our new land uses. Staff recommends approval of the requested CUP for a liquor package store on the approximate 1.5707 acre site for the following reasons. The parcel is surrounded by other commercially zoned property and is not adjacent to residentially zoned land. And the location is not an entrance to a residential neighborhood. The proposed use is a retail use of similar size and intensity to the surround retail and commercial uses, and therefore is compatible. The location in an established shopping center mitigates the potential for negative aesthetics or activity that might accompany this type of retail use. The applicant has not proposed any modifications to the suite, such as bars over the windows or additional light, which would negatively affect the surrounding businesses. If the CUP is considered for approval, staff recommends the following conditions. Number one, bars over or behind the windows would be prohibited. And number two, neon or LED strip lighting around the doors or windows would be prohibited as well. And this completes staff's report.
Okay, that's very good. Thank you. Let's move down to item 3B on our application form. Is the applicant in the audience would like to make a presentation? Please come down, and thank you for being here tonight.
Thank you. Hi. Thank you for the opportunity. My name is Hiren Patel. I want to thank the council members, Mayor Reed, the commissioner here present, to consider giving me the opportunity for this CUP. My plan is to open a liquor store named Liquor Zone on 7109 Broadway Street, Pearland, Texas, 77581. And the reason I'm here is because the city of Pearland was approved for selling off-premises liquor after the election, and that is the reason I'm here, to get an opportunity to open a liquor store within the city limits. The main reason I would say that you would consider me is the property is located a little bit outside of the residential, has great spottage, and it will be a good convenience for the customers because right now they have to go outside the city and get the liquor. Opening a store in Pearland would allow all the customers to get liquor in the city of Pearland, and therefore it will increase revenue for the city also, because right now every single dollar goes outside of the city of Pearland. So that's one of my main points. Also, again, I want to thank you for all the opportunity that has been presented today for me. And hopefully it will be good for the city of Pearland and for us as a small business owner. Thank you so much.
Good. I appreciate those comments. Thank you. Let's move now to item 3C. Does staff have any wrap-up comments at this point? Let's move in our agendas to item number 4, persons wishing to speak for or against the proposed request. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to enter into the record a comment, statement, or testimony regarding this proposed CUP request? Is there anyone in the audience who would like to enter into the record a comment, statement, or testimony regarding this proposed zoning CPU request? CUP, excuse me. For the third and final time, for the purpose of the record, before I move forward in the agenda, is there anyone in the audience who would like to enter into the record a comment, statement, or testimony for CUP 17-00001? And hearing none, let's move in our agendas to item number 5, which will let the Planning Commission staff and council resolve questions that I have. I'd like to start with Councilmember Perez.
No real comments, just to say that I think this is a perfect location for this type of use that was approved by the voters, so I'm supportive of the use.
Yep, thank you, Mayor. So I just want to make sure the applicant's aware of the recommendation that no bars or neon lights, like little, not, yeah, you're.
Yes, of course.
And no flashing lights.
Because I would agree with staff on that. I think that's, so I'm glad you guys are in agreement, because I just think that's tacky to have the neon lights or the bars over it and all that stuff, so.
Pearland is not a type of city where I would require that.
Good, all right. Well, I don't have any issues with it. Thank you.
I think the flashing lights will happen after they drink some of it when they just bought it and gets picked up on the way home. Or do.
Let's hope that doesn't happen either, Mayor. It is revenue, just not the type we'd like to see. Do you operate this franchise somewhere else? And if so, what would the closest one be?
Let's come on
and
down,
if you'd come
podium.
up to the front. Thanks.
I do currently have a liquor store in Texas City named Swizzle Liquor. And it was mentioned in the Houston Chronicle about that when they interviewed me about this location. But yes, in Texas City.
Okay, so this liquor zone would just be the name. It's not a franchise, or
No, it's not a. It's not a franchise.
Okay.
It's a corporation. Yeah.
okay. So you would be on those two. Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Moore?
For, I guess for this to be our first liquor store inside the city limits, it looks like a great location for me. It's away from everything. It's in a strip center next to a grocery store, so I don't really have any issue with it.
You pick a fried chicken right down the way there. Councilmember Reed, I'm sorry.
What's the name of the one in Texas City again?
Swizzle Liquor.
Swizzle?
Yes, SWIZZLE.
Thank you.
Councilmember Carbone?
You can ask for a discount? Question on the staff recommendations is how does the UDC or does the UDC regulate bars over or behind windows?
If it affected transparency, then there's a possibility for it, for the over the window, for the behind the window that's considered inside their own property. And I don't think I have much that I can say when it becomes inside their property.
Okay. And in terms of the neon and LED strip lighting?
LEDs we've generally banned because they are seen as a string of lights. Neon is something that's not regulated by the lighting code, so that's an addition too.
Okay. All right. Thank you. I think both those conditions are reasonable, and yeah, I think the location works. Thank you.
Good. Let me ask the chairman of the planning commission to share some thoughts with us, with commissioners.
I would agree with staff's recommendation on the LED lights and that as well.
Okay, good. That information in the record. Let's move down to item 6 on our collective agenda, which permits me to do an adjournment of conditional use permit CUP 17-00001. And in a like manner, let me open a docketed public hearing for an amendment to the Unified Development Code UDC, and ask staff to make a presentation on this item. That will be under 3A on our agendas.
All right, this is UDC Amendment T24, requested the City of Pearland to amend certain sections of the Unified Development Code, ordinance number 2000T. There are 2 areas in the code that we'll be concentrating on for these amendments. Both of them take place within the land use matrix, dealing with auto accessories and or parts, auto parts sales, and auto wash, and then the other deals with the extended stay hotel motel. So when we took the T18 amendment a few years back, it made changes to auto accessories, auto parts sales, and auto wash, and made them, where they were permitted by right, made them conditional uses within the general business and general commercial zoning districts. While we were, we went to Pearland Parkway to do the changes to the planned developments that are along that area, and then when we went back to do the total, all changes to the PDs, these 3 uses came up as potentials to kind of relieve some of the burden of doing a conditional use permit within the general business and general commercial. So this amendment looks to make auto accessories and or auto parts sales and auto washes permitted by right back again within the general business and general commercial zoning classifications. And you can see the change from conditional use to permitted use within those 3 land use categories. The second change happens within the extended stay hotel motel and the hotel motel land use category. They since from 2006 to now, those 2 uses have really blurred the lines of what defines an extended stay versus what defines a hotel motel. And in order to make both land uses play by the same rules, we're consolidating them by removing hotel motel from the land use matrix and adding that definition back into extended stay hotel motel and grafting them both into one land use term. Makes it a little easier to be able to tell people where to go find that particular land use. They both use the same parking ratio, so this clarifies that land use. And this completes the staff report.
Oh, thanks. Good, thank you. Moving down to 3B, of course, the city is the applicant, and they just made a presentation. Was there any general wrap-up comments that you need to add that maybe I passed? None at all, okay. Then let's move in our agenda to item 4 on our collective agenda. Persons wishing to speak for or against this proposed request. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to enter into the record a comment, statement, or testimony regarding this proposed amendment to the UDC Development Code? Is there anyone in the audience who would like to enter into the record a comment either in support of or in opposition to this proposed zoning request and zoning code? For the third and final time, for the purpose of the record, before I move forward in the agenda, is there anyone who would like to enter into the record a comment, statement, or testimony regarding this proposed amendment to the UDC Development Code? And hearing none, then let's move then to item number 5 on our collective agendas, and let the staff, planning commission, and city council resolve any questions we might have. I'll start with Councilmember Carbone.
Thank you, Mayor. In regards to the combination of the extended stay and the hotel motel, couple questions. I followed most of them, but looking at the GC, it was permitted by right, and for a hotel and extended stay were both permitted by right, and now we're changing to CUPs, correct? Okay, so I guess I'm comfortable leaving those permitted by right in the GC zone. And I see that as kind of, I mean, that's a change versus just combining these two. So I'd be a fan of leaving that permitted. I'll leave that up to other council and commissioners.
I'd second that.
And then also,
What was the motion?
in terms of the mixed-use districts, can you give us some clarity on what those S1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, where those districts are located?
The Spectrum District is generally located next to 288 in the Beltway, the north, well, I guess it would be the southwest corner there. It's the area of land that was brought in 2008, 2006. The difference between S1, S2, and S3, they all kind of grow in intensity as you go up to S5, which is, the heavier industrial district for Spectrum. S1 and S2 are more lighter in commercial activity.
Okay. Thank you. And I guess in regards to the descriptions, are these lengthy descriptions in there needed since we're lumping the extended stay and the hotel motel all together? I mean, I'm just, UDC is fun to read already. I don't need any extra words if it's not providing any benefit. And those are my comments.
Councilmember Reed?
Just to answer the question on definitions, it helps us when we have a developer and we are trying to figure out what the exact use is and where to fit it in. So,
Bless you.
bless you. So the definition helps for staff and the applicants to place themselves in the land use matrix because of a similarity of uses that are there.
Is there anything else in the UDC that's similar to these?
There are other uses that are more like multi-unit occupancy kinds, like you have assisted living, you have multifamily. So they're not exactly the same. They're boarding homes, rooming homes. So just to differentiate and make sure that we get the quality that we're looking for. So.
Thank you.
Okay. Councilmember Reed.
Nothing much, just to say thanks for modifying this. When it was brought to our attention, or when it was brought up during the most recent hotel change, and so it's good to see that they're both on the same page now, and same matrix.
Nothing, Mayor.
Councilmember Moore? Nothing?
I'll echo Councilmember Carbone's comments, but I want to also add, if we look, Old Town Site GB was permitted in both and now's conditional. As far as the definitions, I do see the need for it. My take's almost a little different in what I would like is to make sure that we keep hotels at the level the service level that we currently have. To be blunt and frank, I don't want hotels that charge by less than the day. And trying to find some way to make sure the quality keeps them away from that type of business. I don't think anyone in town wants to see an hourly rate motel come up. So that's where my concern would be, and I do know that there's some language out there that some of the hoteliers have brought up in the past, and I do see that. But again, we're making pretty much, well, this would be, anybody bringing a hotel in would have to come up and get blessed by this body, and for me, that's not the way I want government doing business. I don't want us to have to bless everyone that wants to build X type of business. Let's make sure they're going to build a quality and bring in a quality product. But where the location is, what orientation it is, what shrubs you put out, that's covered by the UDC and should be the same for everyone. And I've yet to see a CUP come before me that did not have something that was a little different than what the UDC would require. And I don't, my view is we are now using CUPs as development agreements and things of that nature, and that's not what I want to see a CUP for. And I don't want to see a CUP for a hotel no matter where they are. So I would like to see the permitted back in the GBs and GCs where they were permitted to begin with.
Councilmember Hill.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, maybe the other services description would get into what you were indirectly referring to. I don't know. But I'm okay with the GB and GC getting changed back to permitted, but I think the rest looks good. So.
Perez?
I'm going to differ from the other council members. There's a lot of GB and GC that abuts residential. Some of the biggest controversy we've had for hotels is allowing these hotels next to a residential use, where people are concerned about the height of the building and people that they don't know and they didn't choose to live next to, maybe staying for 3 or 4 months, being able to peer in their backyard, possibly being able to peer into their rear windows. I think that the purpose of government is to protect those who are governed. I think that's an aspect of it. We don't get to control who stays at these locations. I think we should at least give the opportunity for the people who live in and around the area a say to say, like, yeah, this is something I'm okay with living next to, or no, that's not something I really want to live next to, and have their voice heard. It's not about my opinion, it's about theirs. I know the Candlewood Suites that came in, the zoning was allowed. It was a CUP. It gave the opportunity for some of the individuals, or actually, if with the CUP, it would have given the opportunity for some of the individuals who were concerned about that to voice their concern. So I would not be in favor of us changing that, those provisions. Leave them as they are, or allow those to be through CUP, at least have the opportunity for the GC and the GB zones that abut residential to let those people know that that there's a hotel coming in next to them.
Okay.
Mayor, if I can ask a quick question of staff, do we have any adjacency requirements for when in GB or GC abuts residential?
So we do, and I would like to bring up the Candlewood issue because that's something that prompted us to start looking into this land use category. So if you look at the Candlewood Hotel, there is a 25-foot landscape buffer there. And if you talk to the residents, they will tell you that that 25-foot buffer, when you have a 3 or a 4-story building next to you, it does not help. And that's what prompted a CUP. What the CUP would do is it's not going to prohibit something like a Candlewood, but maybe it could have been designed better where some of the parking was at the back and the building was moved away from the residences. So, and I'm glad Councilman Perez brought it up because that was actually what prompted this whole CUP issue for hotels. Because the GB-GC zone also allows 45 feet by right, which a 25 or a 30-foot buffer does not help with buffering existing residential neighborhood. The other thing that has happened in Pearland is because of the development pattern, we have one long east-west Broadway spine. And if you look at that spine, most of the properties along Broadway are either GB or GC. And ideally, what you would like to see is you have a GB zone and you have a buffer of an OP or an NS zone, and then you have a residential district. That hasn't happened in Pearland because of the patterns of our growth. And you have a number of parcels that are GB and GC that abut residential, established residential neighborhoods. And that's why we look into the buffer zone so closely. And because of the height that the GB and GC allows, I'll tell you, you can talk to the residents in Candlewood, that 25-foot buffer does not help. There are other ways of redesigning the site and still allowing the use to be there. So one way to do it is to allow it by a CUP, which does not prohibit the use, but if there is a residential adjacency consideration, it helps the council and the commission to look at that and help the developer to build something that is compatible with surrounding residential. And the other issues with motels is true, is that it is a transient population. They come and go. They're not really vested in the community. So the neighbors are wary about strangers that come, and they're short-term visitors in the city. So those were some of the concerns that we looked at when we recommended CUP for these zones. And then going back to the Spectrum District, that is the Lower Kirby area, like Martin mentioned. So on both sides of Kirby, as you know, the city has put in a lot of investment. And I guess this just ensures that the type of development that happens, again, a motel hotel is not prohibited, but it gives the council and planning and zoning commission an opportunity to look at the standards and make sure that value is added in the Lower Kirby zone. So that's the reason why we thought CUP was a better way to allow these uses in the city of Pearland.
I thought I remembered something where height and setback changed, and I thought Candlewood was the reason for that in the UDC.
Right, so that happened only in residential retail nodes. That wasn't adopted for all GB and GC zones.
Okay, why don't we look at adopting that? Because for me, an office building that's just as tall as that hotel could still allow someone to look over my fence.
As somebody that lives directly behind Candlewood Suites, it's not the same thing. We have people there all night long playing blasting music in the parking lot all night long.
And there's a noise ordinance.
But
there's a noise ordinance. I'm not creating a new law to reinforce something we already have.
Well, and I understand it's definitely a difference in perception on the people that are there. People who work at office buildings come in, leave normal office hours 98% of the time. We have people literally looking over our fence, walking through the shrubbery to talk to my kids in my backyard. It's a different set of people. And it's not just the nightlies that come in for one night and they're gone. It's the people that come in who work for the railroad or work for whoever, who are there for 2 to 3 weeks straight and then leave. Those are the ones that concern me the most. So, I don't know. I know it's not our turn, but any way that we can look at the sites before they come through, I think is a good thing.
Well, and I'll have to disagree on that one, but I don't mind looking at the setback to look over. I do understand that concern, and I have that concern no matter what that building is. I mean, one of our largest child predators we had in Pearland was a single-family home that overlooked a park. So, it doesn't matter what the development is. If somebody wants to do something bad, they can do it. So, I would be interested in looking at changing that away from just in that node. But, again, I just don't want business getting nitty-picky into what's coming and what's coming in. And I mean, we had the hoteliers emailing us over this last hotel because it's a low, it was a Carlston brand. It wasn't a Marriott. It wasn't, these other brands. And for me, that's not government's place. Do I like Carlston? Do I stay at a Carlston? No, I normally don't. If I can pick a Marriott or a Hilton, I prefer a Marriott or Hilton brand. But when I sit here, I have to view that differently.
Most development, it requires a fence at the back, the 6-foot fence.
Oh, yeah, they use my fence.
Yeah,
That was the fence.
you got a better fence. Any other council comments?
I would just say that, I appreciate what Councilmember Ordino is saying about limited government. I do believe that there should be a limit to government. I don't think that this is the limit. Our job is to protect the people who live here, not protect the franchisees who don't live here so they can build a hotel, or the transient people who come here and stay for a night or a week, and give them our job is not to make their lives better. Our job is to make the people who live here every day their lives better. Giving them the opportunity to have a say of, I don't want to live next to transient people, is one of the purposes why we have zoning. It's one of the reasons that we were that the citizens of Pearland opted to have this protection. Now, I appreciate the argument against limited government. That devolves into a conversation of, let's get rid of zoning, conversation you and I have already had.
I'll make a motion now.
Then I don't think that that's going to go very far. Our city was developed and protected and grew on the fact that we had zoning over the last.
And how much growth did we have before we put in zoning? Because I would disagree that it grew based on zoning. I think we had growth before zoning. Because I have no problem with a master plan development where you zone from day one.
I appreciate
That's not what we did.
We could live in the city of Houston where you can live next to anything. You can have your home have a 27-story building go right next to your home. Our citizens enjoy the protection of zoning. This is one of the things that they enjoy, to be able to select what they live next to. And I don't think it's very much for us to say, council gets a right to say whether that's an appropriate place for a hotel right next to a residential zone. If it's next to an office building, I don't disagree with you. Let it happen. And I'm not a real big fan of using the CUP as a modified PD process. I agree with you on that. But the use, in my opinion, should be allowed in the GB zone, but we should be allowed to say, but we don't run it next to residential.
Council, have any other questions or comments? Mr. Chairman, you have a comment, and some of the other council
Go through the commissioners first.
commissioners?
Anyone? Well, sounds like we have a highly debatable item, at least on two parts anyways. I'm not going to debate whether or not the city of Pearland should be zoned or not, because I moved here for that reason, it being zoned from Houston. So I'm a fan of conditional use permits. We've proven through the last 3 or 4 years that they work. They are an extra step for a business, but if a business is building a $4 or $5 million hotel here, they'll go through the process. It gives us a means to protect the citizens, and one of my pet peeves is that the citizens are at least given a chance to show up and speak. Whether they do or not, that's up to them, but they had the opportunity. In the case of Candlewood Suites, I don't think the citizens had that chance to come in and have an input on a 4-story hotel going up right behind their house. So
I'll echo that statement. We found out when the framing was going on.
So what we've done on previous items in PDs and CUPs is it allows us to add some small conditions to a development. Fencing, setbacks, lighting, all things that affect neighboring citizens. And for the most part in Pearland, if you build something like this, you're going to be next to residential somewhere. I mean, it's going to happen. So I support moving them to conditional use permits. Whether or not it makes it through council, I'll at least have said my piece.
Most of that type development is located away from the residential area in the first place in general. Staff have any wrap-up comments at this point? Good. Item 6 said that I can adjourn this particular standalone public hearing, which I shall do for amendments to the Unified Development Code, UDC. We are adjourned at 7:20. This time I will open a special meeting of City Council City of Pearland for Monday, February the 20th, 2017. And moving into new business, which would be an executive session under Texas Government Code Section 551.071 for consultation with the city attorney regarding ethics regulations, and Section 551.074 for personnel matters regarding the annual evaluation of the city manager. Obviously, in executive session, we cannot. We can discuss these with our staff and the individuals in the executive session, but we cannot make a decision in executive session. And
excuse me, Mayor.
At some point when we're complete.
I just realized I think that the special meeting is actually posted for 7:30. So we need to wait about 6 or 7 more minutes before we go through this process. I apologize.
So I'll talk for 5 minutes here as we go through. Yeah, you're right. It is posted for 7:30, but what I have read, hang with me, and I'll gavel that in place at 7:30. Now, the city council will move out of the chamber. The planning commission will remain here for their meeting, which will follow immediately. So if you'd like to stay for that, you have a privilege to do so. So you've got about 5 minutes. In there, I expect y'all may be through before we get back. We've got two. We've got consultation on ethics regulations, and that's a little talking. And if any of you have missed the original preview of the agenda, it was for an executive session under Section 551.071, consultation with city attorney regarding ethics regulations, and Section 551.074, personnel matters regarding the annual evaluation of the city manager. Obviously, in executive session, we can discuss these with the individuals in the session, but we cannot make a decision in executive session. But when we come back into open session, we can conclude that and then carry on to adjourn. So at this time, we will recess into executive session at 7:28. And those of you who want to stay for the planning and zoning meeting, which the council will be leaving the chamber to go into executive session. And at some point, we must come back into the chamber by charter requirements to conclude our executive session. Then we will leave and leave all of you with the planning commission and their process. So thank you for.
We'll go ahead and call the regular meeting of the City Planning and Zoning Commission for February 20th. It is now 7:33. Let the record show Ginger McFadden is not here. So hopefully she's not sick with the flu like everybody else I work with. Okay. Going on to item number 2, our consent agenda. We have a couple items on the consent agenda. Item A, approve the minutes from January 20th, regular planning and zoning meeting. Number 2, excuse the absence of Commissioner David Telsky, January 20th. And item B, consideration possible action, final plat of Savannah Parkway Reserves Street dedication.
Make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Got a motion and a second. Does anyone, well, no. We'll go ahead and vote. All those in favor signify by raising your right hand. None opposed. Item passes 6-0. Moving on to number 3, new business. Item A, consideration possible action, final plat of Stewart Heights at Savannah, section number 4. And I believe we have as well, we don't do these one at a time, but we have 3 that are very similar. So if staff would, once we get going on this first one, if they would just present the entire package, then we could move on and read them in.
You want all 3 read at the same time?
If that's an option, or does he need to read every time? I can
Looking
read.
at the agenda, I think it's best to keep the roadway projects separate from the subdivision project.
Okay,
It might be easier for planning and zoning to, if you wanted to lump them together, lump the 2 roadways together, but leave the subdivision.
Let's just roll through these very quickly, and we'll do it that way. Item A, consideration possible action, final plat of Stewart Heights at Savannah, section number 4. This is generally located on the north side of County Road 58, about 200 feet west of Savannah Parkway. Do I hear a motion?
I move that it be approved.
I have a motion and a second to approve. Staff want to give a report on this one?
Yes, sir. For the public record, Vince Husted, city staff. This item is intended to create 62 single-family lots, 5 reserves on approximately 20.406 acres in the Savannah Lakes development area. As a bit of history, the preliminary plat was approved by the Planning and Zoning Commission on November 2nd, 2015. The preliminary plats for County Road 58 street dedications 1 and 2 are also on this evening's agenda, which are related to this plat, but separate items on the agenda. Staff recommends approval of the final plat of Stewart Heights, Section 4, as proposed by the applicant with the following condition. The condition is that agreements regarding the construction of County Road 58 need to be finalized and executed prior to recordation of the plat per staff approval. That concludes my presentation.
Commissioners have any questions? So since this is a final plat, I got a couple questions. Is this section, I'm not familiar with this, is this completed or is this final plat? Is this section completed?
No, sir.
So is there a agreement in place, subdivision improvement agreement in place?
The plat itself is under the overall Savannah Lakes Development Agreement area. The key to this final plat is making sure that County Road 58 gets constructed up to standards.
If I may, I believe I think that what you're actually concerned about is the subdivision improvement agreement to make sure that the infrastructure is complete prior to, or what would typically be required prior to the approval of the final plat. and the selling of the homes. While that is the typical or the norm for what the city of Pearland does, this particular property and development is in the ETJ, and we have a development agreement. And the language of the development agreement says that they have to comply with the prior prior to the UDC, the subdivision regulations, but our development agreement says that it is as development occurs adjacent to the project. So what you'll see in the next two items are the roadways that are adjacent to Section 4 and adjacent to Section 5. So those will be the next two preliminary plats. They're not done now, but pursuant to that development agreement, it doesn't have to be done prior to final plat approval. It has to be done as development occurs adjacent to it. So, but staff is working on ways staff is working with the developer to try to hone in when those things are going to happen, and we may have an option when Section 5 comes to you to make sure that you have the comfort that you need that the UDC provides now.
Okay, so Vince, could you back up to your
to the recommendation?
To the recommendation, so we can.
Yes, sir.
I forget who made the motion. Does someone want to?
I did.
Mary, would you like to?
I will amend the motion to include the staff recommendation to agree to regarding County Road 58 need to be finalized and executed prior to recordation per staff approval.
Okay, we have a motion to amend the original motion. Do we have a second for that? We have a second for that. So the original motion has been amended to add staff's recommendation. Do we have any further discussion? Okay, all those in.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought there was going to be a question about a conditional approval of a final plat because that's problematic. And that's why I was eager to address it. I didn't mean to interrupt your flow there.
Okay, so we're good.
It's a final plat, and if you don't meet the condition by operation of law, it gets approved within 30 days. So I believe our final deadline on this is February 24th. This particular condition it would apply, it's a standard staff condition that we would apply to situations under the UDC now, and I think it's formulaic for us to suggest it. It might not be warranted in this particular instance because we don't have SIAs, and it's hard for us to have a conditional approval on a final plat.
So in your opinion, it doesn't matter if we put it on there or not?
You can attach you can attach it, but even if you attach it, by operation of law, if they don't satisfy that condition, the final plat gets approved.
Well, at least we can say we tried.
Yes, absolutely.
So basically what you're saying is they do it in phases.
Yes, when we get to the next two items, it's going to be in phases. And maybe we should have put them all on the table at once to give you the big picture. I apologize for putting the other two separate from this, but
I will, at least myself, I'll yield to staff's recommendation, and we'll go with that. That's my opinion. Okay. Any other discussion? All those in favor, signify by raising your right hand. None opposed. Motion passes 6-0.
So the motion to amend was?
It was approved.
You all agreed to amend and now you need to vote on the motion for the amendment. Remember, it's a two-step process.
Sorry. Yeah.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, ma'am.
I thought that if the person that made the motion made the amendment, you didn't have to vote twice.
I think that that's a procedure that P&Z started falling into, but it is, I think we need to amend our bylaws before we formally adopt that. And in case there's any question, I'm going to encourage us to do it differently.
It's called Robert's Rules of Order, but never mind.
Ooh. Counselor?
Robert's rules may say that. Planning and zoning has adopted their own bylaws, and we need to adhere to those.
So
We have to vote again.
we need to vote one more time. We all agreed to change the motion, amend the motion. Now the vote is for the amended motion. All those in favor, signify by raising your right hand. None opposed. Motion passes 6-0.
The motion as amended.
As amended.
Thank you.
Be careful, because I've
Let's go to
been
item B.
parliamentarian too many times.
Item B on the agenda, consideration possible action, preliminary plat of County Road 58 Street Phase 4, Savannah Parkway to Lost Spring Lane. Can we read both of them? Since
Yes,
they're
sir.
Similar, and we'll also, item C, likewise, preliminary plat of County Road 58 Street Phase 4, Savannah Parkway to Augusta Manor Drive. Do I hear a motion to approve items B and C? We have a motion and a second. Staff have a report on this one?
Yes, sir. The first item, the preliminary plat of County Road 58 from Savannah Parkway to Lost Springs Lanes, will dedicate approximately a 2,000-foot long and 125-foot wide section of right-of-way for County Road 58. This section will be from Savannah Parkway to Lost Springs Lane. This will have the result of improving access to Stewart Heights Section 4 and Savannah Cove Section 2, and this will also formalize the legal description and dedication of right-of-way for the existing section of County Road 58. Staff recommends approval of the preliminary plat of County Road 58 from Savannah Parkway to Lost Springs Lane with the following condition. Again, that agreements regarding County Road 58 need to be finalized and executed prior to recordation per staff approval. And I will also like to present the Planning and Zoning Commission with a map showing that 2,000-foot strip from Savannah Parkway to Lost Springs Lane. As for the second item, which is the preliminary plat of County Road 58 from Lost Springs Lane to Augusta Manor Drive. This would dedicate a approximately 630-foot long strip that is 120 feet wide section of right-of-way for County Road 58. And the second section would link Lost Springs Lane to Augusta Manor Drive. And again, this would improve access to the Savannah Lakes development from the west, and it would also formalize the legal description and dedication of right-of-way for the existing section of County Road 58. Again, staff recommends approval of the preliminary plat of County Road 58, Lost Springs Lane to Augusta Manor Drive, with the condition that agreements regarding County Road 58 need to be finalized and executed prior to recordation per staff approval. And finally, I have a map showing the location of this preliminary plat from Lost Springs Lane to Augusta Manor Drive, which is almost to the, still doesn't quite connect to the Fort Bend County line, but it's dedicating right-of-way further to the west from Savannah Parkway. That concludes my presentations.
Thank you. Any discussion? Okay, the chair would like to amend the original motion to include staff's condition that agreements regarding County Road 58 be finalized and executed prior to recordation per staff approval. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second to amend the original sorry, lost my train of thought. All those in favor of amending, signify by raising your right hand. Okay, motion passes 6-0. Any further discussion before we vote? None. All those in favor, signify by raising your right hand. Motion passes 6-0 for items B and C. Okay. Item D, consideration possible action, P&Z variance number VARP 17-00001. This is a request by Alan Seibeneicher. Sorry if I got that wrong. Applicant and owner for approval of a variance permitted in section 2.4.4.5, C1, A, B, and C of Unified Development Code Ordinance Number 2000T to reduce the minimum lot width from 150 feet to 37.23 feet for an existing lot zoned general business. This is located to the north side of 3rd Street, about 700 feet west of Main Street. Do I hear a motion?
I'll move to approve VARP 17-00001.
I'll second it.
Have a motion and a second. Staff have a presentation?
Yes, sir. This request is a request located on 3rd Street that would reduce the minimum lot width from the required minimum lot width of 150 feet for the zoning district that is located in. It would be quite a reduction down to a little over 37 feet. However, this particular lot is recorded as Lot 11, Block 3 of the airport site subdivision. This is a property that had been platted in the 1940s. Generally speaking, if this variance is approved, it would allow the development process to allow the lot to be platted under the current Unified Development Code as a city-recognized plat. This property does have some unique characteristics since the western boundary of the lot fronts on a railroad right-of-way. Staff recommends the approval of this variance to reduce the minimum lot frontage from 150 feet to 37.23 feet and to reduce the minimum lot area from 22,500 square feet to 6,410 square feet for the proposed lot for the following reasons. One, the property is currently zoned general business. And two, although the lot was originally created for residential uses, the future land use plan 2015 shows the lot as light industrial. And third, the property is surrounded by property that is zoned general business. And I will present a map that shows the location of the property. There are some residences in the area, but it's staff feels that it is unlikely that there will probably be future residences be built in the neighborhood due to the zoning of the property. Also, the property is at the end of a dead-end street, and it's could almost be considered a flag lot. And I wanted to mention that legal had pointed this out to me, that if it were to be considered a flag lot, the amount of reduction for the frontage of the property would be less than 50%, because it'd be reducing the width of the frontal lot from 50 feet down to the 37 feet as mentioned earlier. It's unlikely that if this variance is not granted, either way, this property probably will not be able to be developed. And that concludes my presentation.
Is the applicant here? Okay, thank you. Does anybody have any questions for staff? Comments? This is one I kind of wonder about, what the purpose of the zone change is, or the variance. It's a unique piece of property.
It is a unique piece of property, especially in light of the railroad tracks. I mean, you could see that that's what changes the boundary over there. If I recall correctly, I think that to put a fence up, they needed to get a permit, but they weren't able to get a permit for the fence because they needed current zoning on the property. And you had not current zoning. They needed to comply with our requirements, and they didn't without this variance. But planning may be better able to address that. I think that that's the gentleman just wants to protect his property and put a fence around it, and he needed to get a variance in order to get the permit for that, is what it came down to.
Yes, sir, that's correct.
Okay. Anybody have any questions? All those in favor, signify by raising your right hand. None opposed, motion passes 6-0. Moving on to item E, consideration possible action, zone change application CUP 16-00015. Request of Ted Meyer, applicant on behalf of Musa Adi, owner, for approval and conditional use permit to allow for an auto wash self-service in the general commercial GC zoning district. Location is 1524 East Broadway Street. Do I hear a motion? Have a motion and a second. This is an item from the joint public hearing. Do any of the commissioners wish staff to present anything further on this item? Anything to discuss? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor signify by raising your right hand. None opposed. Item passes 6-0. Item F, consideration possible action, zone change application CUP 17-0001. This is for the liquor package store we just heard about on the JPH. 7109 West Broadway Street. Do I hear a motion? Have a motion and a second.
Two
I've
staff
got-
recommendations.
Right. Does anybody wish to discuss anything? Got a couple of questions for staff and maybe Lotta. We currently don't, just confirm this, we currently don't have any UDC requirements or codes about bars or the flashing LED light strips around the windows.
I think Martin explained it better.
Yeah.
The only reason I'm asking is because I've brought these up before, the flashing LED lights that seem to be popping up everywhere around windows and doors or roofs.
Give me a list of them.
Yeah,
The LED lights are considered a strip because they're individual bulbs strung together, and the lighting ordinance, the specific portion of it says no string of lights. So
Even if they're internal in the window?
Most of them are external from what I've seen.
the majority, the standard is that they're outside. They present a bigger ambiance if it's outside the window. So you get more attention that way.
I had one other question for the applicant, if he doesn't mind coming up. The city's recommending a condition that you don't have any burglar bars behind the windows, that those would be prohibited. I see from a picture of your other store that you have those in place. Is this a concern amongst liquor store businesses? This is the first one we've had.
To be honest, it all depends on the area, the location. Here, I don't see a need because, again, Pearland, I consider it to be a safe place. Plus, it's a shopping center, a big shopping center where there will be a lot of activity. So I don't see a need for any burger bars. The other store that when we bought it in 2014, it already had them installed. So we just kept it as is. And I don't intend to put any LED lights outside also.
Now, a lot of the neon lights, that's inside as far, my experience with liquor stores is there are neon lights inside the stores. Is that what you're talking about here with?
So if it's
neon?
visible, like sometimes, they have neon lights around the windows, and if it's visible from outside, then we would like to regulate that. But if it's inside the store on another wall that's interior, then it's not that much of an issue.
I'm just trying to be fair with my questions because we have a few gasoline stores, convenience stores that have a multitude of flashing lights and scrolling lights and lights in the windows.
Right.
And we're imposing this on this business, while right across the street at the Exxon and the Texaco, there's multiple flashing lights and things to attract people's attention, to get them to buy cigars and beer and things like that.
So the flashing lights are prohibited, so they are currently in violation, so we can send our code
Scrolling,
enforcement.
I should use the word scrolling. Scrolling is okay if it's within a certain speed, so then it becomes an issue
That's
with.
only for signage, though, not for lights around windows. So the animated signs are permitted, the LED signs that you see, where we restrict the movement, but around windows, it's not permitted. So this just clarifies it for their benefit. If there
I
is
totally agree
Yeah.
with clarifying it for this instances, because this is a CUP for a liquor store that's totally within the new ordinance. But I would like to see us do something with those other businesses, either a code compliance thing or additional modifications to the CUP to make sure we specifically not allow them.
So we have been paying more attention to those kind of lighting recently. Some gas stations, especially the one on Cullen and Broadway, it's a new development there, and they have it too. So that kind of brought us to our attention.
Well, even
So-
older businesses along 35 that have neon lights
Yeah.
that change colors, that outline the building. Is that a structural component of the building, or is that a strip light? I don't know.
We can
I just wish we
definitely
had
look
some
into that.
clarification.
Yeah.
I'm not against, I might go one way or the other, whether if it's a structural component of the building and meant to be there, or if it's just added on to make flashy lights or things show up to make something jump out at you. Sorry for your
That's
time.
okay. That's
Thank you
okay.
for answering the question.
Thank you.
I've talked enough. Anybody else?
About if he had an open or closed sign that was neon, but it wasn't flashing, is he allowed to do that?
There are some restrictions on, you could have directional signs, and certain signs based on their sizes are okay. Like if it's less than 2 square feet, it's considered more of a directional sign. But we would have to look and see. It's case by case, because there's a lot of things that's happening on the storefront. And just the open or closed one is okay, but it can be flashing or moving or around a window frame, anything more than that. And it also depends on the type of lighting in certain cases.
Okay, that being said, the chair would like to amend the original motion to add condition number 1, that bars over or behind the windows would be prohibited. Item 2, neon and LED strip lighting around the doors or windows would be prohibited. Do I hear a second? Second. I have a motion and a second to amend. All those in favor of amending the original motion, signify by raising your right hand. Motion passes 6-0. Any further discussion? Comments? Okay, all those in favor, signify by raising your right hand. Motion passes 6-0. Thank you for your time. Okay, on to item F. Serious possible action, zone change. I'm one off. Sorry. Item G. Sorry. Consider possible action amendments to the Unified Development Code UDC. This is a request of the City of Pearland for proposed amendments to the Unified Development Code Ordinance Number 2000T. Do I hear a motion?
I'll move to approve.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. Staff want to come up to the podium and take questions? Does anybody want to go first? I'll go last. Carol, thing. Okay, so what I heard from council was mixed. And this is one of the things I like to do, because I've heard from council that we need to discuss items like this more. and record our input so that they hear from the commissioners what we think when we pass a recommendation to them. Staff's recommended changes to some permitted and some conditional use. I totally support staff's recommendation for conditional use permit changes across all of these. The ones that they marked permitted, that takes away some of the, as I see it, if I understand it correctly, some of these would now be permitted without having to go through the CUP process that we outlined for automotive stores, which some council members disagreed with, having a conditional use permit for auto parts when they're just selling things in a store, which I agree with, and that looks to me like what's been changed. The other ones were around hotels, and that seems to be the highly contested one. I agree with the conditional use permit process because, one, it allows notification when something is going in that's going to affect your property, whether you're a business owner or a resident. It doesn't matter. As long as you're a landowner within the distance requirements of that, you get a chance to come speak. If council doesn't have a problem with it, they don't even have to look at it. They can just approve it. But if there is any kind of issue, or if the public comes out in a stampede saying, no, we don't want this, then that allows council the opportunity to either modify it, have staff work with the applicant, or flat out say no. So I support the way that staff has recommended for these changes. I think they put some thought into it. And as far as the definitions, what's the harm in defining things? I don't understand the pushback there. So whether or not they listen to our recommendation, whatever it is out of this vote, is fine, but I'm totally in favor of the conditional use permit changes.
I will echo that. Having been negatively affected by this in the past, I think I'm a little bit sensitive to it. When you don't know that you're getting a hotel behind you until they start, until they break your fence, using it to tack their forms up for their foundation. You don't get to see the site plan until it's actually built. You have to go and fight just to get some landscaping behind your fence so you don't see their headlights flashing through your fence. When you constantly have people that you have no idea who they are behind you at all hours of the night, sitting in their trucks in the fire lane, listening to the radio, having a good old time, having a few beers in the parking lot. I would have liked to have known and been able to have some input as a citizen into, at least trying to get a few additional improvements, better landscaping, possibly using somebody's fence besides my crappy little fence that I have on my property as the fencing for their property. Anything would have helped. And I know that, we didn't know about it until it was happening, and it was already going to be approved, and when everything was approved, site plan was approved, everything. And I think the city did a pretty good job of at least getting us something. But I think we could have I think with the CUP process, I think we could have gotten a better design out of the deal. So that's my opinion. I'm in favor of the CUP process for hotels, motels, especially when they butt up against residential areas, and they do butt up against residential areas.
Mary, do you have anything input?
Excuse me, I seem to be losing my voice, but no, I think we probably do need to have a description of what's going to go there and what they plan to use it for, and if there are restrictions that need to be put on it because of its being close to residential, then that needs to be worked out with the applicant. I don't like a whole lot of restrictions on everybody and everything, but I really think that there is a time and a place for it, and I think this may be one of the times and places.
Darrell, you have anything?
I agree with Thomas on all of this. You know, the whole purpose of this process up here is to protect the public. And, you know, I look at it that we're kind of the last line of defense when it comes to that, putting up certain things, putting it up next to residential. I agree with having the CUP process in there, especially for the hotels and such, just strictly to eliminate some of the things that his families had to go through. You know, whether it had been, like you said, have them put a bigger fence and a stone fence across there or something to eliminate that. You know, not everybody that checks in these hotels are deviants, you know, but you're going to have one, and that's all it takes. And it doesn't make any difference that you have 1 million people go through there. If you have one go through there and it harms a Pearland child, then as far as I'm concerned, we haven't done our job. So, you know, I'm 100% in agreement with y'all about the CUP process and this and that.
Yeah, and I agree with you, and I think it goes further than just saying we're here to protect the public. I think it's important we engage them as well, and especially in the CUP where we solicit feedback for residents within a certain radius of the location. I think we want people to come in. We want to hear why they are proponents or opponents of a certain asset that's being introduced. So I wouldn't want to see that go away. I think if there's something in the process that's bringing this to the front, then we should visit that. But I wouldn't want to get rid of it entirely, especially in situations like this where I think residents might actually have a strong opinion about what's going in and the amenities that go along with it.
I agree with Thomas, and I know you're upset about it. I would be upset too, so. So I just want to say that I agree with Thomas.
I agree with you as well. Okay. I just find there's some items in for the CUP process almost get an automatic approval of CUPs. Hey, liquor stores for one. Everybody says, okay, we'll approve a liquor store, and everybody says, it's got to be a CUP. And everybody agrees. Some people could argue why. They're just selling packages. So, but if there's no issue with that permit, there won't be any conditions. So I'm good with the CUP process. We've shown that it works. This body itself has recommended things that have helped. I would like to have been involved in some of the things on Pearland Parkway because I think we would have been able to affect and make them better neighbors to the community and not have some of the things that are bugging the community that has cost the city a bunch of time and money dealing with. Everything that's a complaint later costs the city tax money. And the more we can do to keep that from happening in the future, you know, that's our responsibility as this commission. So I'll shut up and vote.
You know, though, at the same point, I think it's important that we do question it. Because when I look at the list of items that are in CUPs, some of them I understand, but some of them I don't. So I think it's appropriate if occasionally they come before this committee to say, should it continue being a CUP? So we can at least revisit it and learn from the lessons of history. I mean, I don't know why some of these got on in the first place. And this is a good opportunity to discuss it and see if it still has merit. And in this case, it does.
Any other comments before we vote? None? All those in favor, signify by raising your right hand. You yes? Yeah, I did. 6-0. Okay. That was item G. Commissioner's activity report. Okay, nothing there. Next P&Z meeting, I heard you say something earlier about March 6th not being a good date, or what's the?
There was a city council meeting that was supposed to be on March 6th as well. They did not have enough members to make a quorum for that meeting, which is why I got moved to March 20th. There are plats that have to be approved.
Okay,
so
there's
y'all will
March
have a
6th,
meeting.
March 6th is our next one. I just want to be clear. Okay.
Glad to clear it up.
Good. Nothing else? Move to adjourn at 8:13.
Martin, did I hear you say that on March the 27th?
Late. Get out of here.
Kind of like a little behind mic.
It's hard, man. It's hard.
The council has returned from executive session at 9:31. Moving in our agenda to new business. Consideration and possible action regarding ethics regulations. Our council will take no action on that tonight. And the consideration and item number 2, new business, consideration and possible action regarding the annual evaluation of city manager. And that was conducted, and would somebody make a motion to approve what we agreed to in the city manager?
So moved. Sorry.
Have a motion, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, any discussion on that motion? Hearing none, those in favor of that motion, please respond with a verbal aye.
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 Those opposed by verbal no. Thank you guys for what you've done tonight. That's a good show. See you in Austin.